Hey, welcome back to Hot Water Wrestling, and I'm here to do my Q&A answers as promised. Thanks to everyone who participated in this and taken an interest in the Q&A. I'm excited to do my very first Q&A here, so let's get right into it. Well, Gemini asks, I'm gonna go in order. Gemini 686 was the very first guy to send a question in, so I'm gonna answer his first. We only asked two of them. Question one was, why do I hate HBK so much? And, well, he didn't ask why I hate HBK. He states that I hate HBK, and how can I let his bad outweigh all the good that he's done? Well, I always say in any of my videos, when I talk about HBK and I mention that I'm not a big fan of his, I'm not a big fan of the character. I've never been a big fan. Even before the Montreal Screwjob, I didn't really like Shawn Michaels. I never really did. But I never deny his amazing talent and in-ring work and all his accomplishments as a wrestler. I have not lost sight of that. I am well aware that he's very decorated and arguably the greatest wrestler of all time. So I've always said that. Another thing is yeah, it's kind of a joke question. Points out that Bret Hart and I always wear shades. Well, you know, it's something I did when I first came on YouTube, and I just decided to stick with it. And yes, I am a big Bret Hart fan. Maybe somewhere in the back of my mind it was the inspiration, but I just kind of did it. Matt Demp, what was the first pay-per-view you have ordered? From Matt Demp, WrestleMania 2. All right, the next question is from Gold Dizzy. He wants to know who I think the greatest cruiserweight of all time is. It would have to be Rey Mysterio, probably. Yeah, Rey Mysterio. Fort Minor Project asked if I could be asked what would I do if I was general manager of Raw. And another guy asked me, King of Kings 604 asked me, what would I do if I had complete creative control in WWE or TNA? Well, I'm going to do it quick. If I had complete creative control, one of the first things I would do in WWE is I would keep Monday Night Raw TV 14 or TV MA. Because I know a lot of little kids are already in bed when the show's on. And just to make sure, I would keep the first hour of the show a little more tame, but the second hour would always be Raw. And I would do my pay-per-views, TV 14 or TV MA, for sure. Some more than others. And, you know, I don't see a problem with having SmackDown maybe PG-13 and having Superstars completely PG. But they need to keep the integrity of the product. Next thing would be for TNA. God, I get rid of a lot of the old farts. I would get rid of a lot of the old farts and fire Vince Russo. And I would bring in some new creative people and have a filter for Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff because I think they need one. Anyways, next would be Luke Hart 11 asked, now that the draft is over, what show do I look forward to watching? Raw. I always have been partial to Raw. All right, Wrestle Info Guy. The Wrestle Info Guy. He's wanting to know if I think TNA is really their own product or are they just a part of WWE's leftovers. And he also wants to know if I think TNA will ever turn PG. It would take a lot for TNA to turn PG. That is the one thing right now they have that WWE doesn't have. It's the only thing they really have. So they're going to stay non-PG for as long as possible. They would have to be pretty big for that. And yeah, you know, they are their own product, a little less their own product. I mean, since Hogan and Bischoff came in, that is a good point that, you know, they are rehashing a lot of older stuff and they are using a lot of older guys, but they were really coming into their own in 2009, and I think they're going to turn it back around and come more into their own. So, all right, next is going to be from WWE Forever 98. And he asks, what are my favorite wrestlers from the 80s, 90s, and 2000s? And, well, gosh, from the 80s, Tito Santana. I love Tito Santana. He was my favorite singles wrestler. Other than Hulk Hogan, who was kind of on a huge pedestal, him and like Andre the Giant and Roddy Piper, they were like, those three were huge guys. But Tito Santana, I loved. I always rooted for him. The British Bulldogs, huge fan. I really like Jake the Snake Roberts. I really like the Hart Foundation. When I was little in that time, we didn't have access to the internet like we do now. We didn't know that much about wrestling and people like the superstars behind the scenes. So I really hated a lot of the heels and liked a lot of the faces because wrestling was a lot different back then. But obviously, as I got older and matured, I really, loved Randy Macho Man Savage and the Hart Foundation. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, I have to give a mention to. Loved him to death. And Roddy Piper, obviously, always liked seeing him. So, the 90s, would definitely have to be Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock. Loved them in the 90s. And a lot of the guys just that were left over from the 80s that I really adored. I guess really my favorite guy in the 90s would have to be Mick Foley because he's one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. And I didn't find out about him until the 90s. So I'd have to say him for sure. Loved hugely. Next one is from Conseco is God. What is my favorite tag team of all time? The British Bulldogs, of course. And why? Well, they were part of a new breed. They were huge, muscular, but they could move. They could do aerials. They could do just about everything you wanted a tag team to do. I mean, it was sad while they were wrestling in their time that they were innovating tag teams, and I really think that they played a huge part in it. Now, there's, of course, other teams that did play a big part in that. But the Bulldogs had the look of a modern-day wrestler. If you go look at their footage, they look like the guys now. Whereas, you take the Killer Bees, for instance, or even Demolition. They didn't, Sheik and Volkov. Wrestling has changed a lot, and, I mean, there's a lot about that I love, and we don't have today, which I don't like. But make a long story short, the British Bulldogs, man, my favorite. Next one is from Billy Pizzone. What's my favorite storyline and feud? And do I miss the hardcore title in the WWF? Well, I mean, definitely the hardcore title kind of ran its course. I miss hardcore, period, in the WWF. But the hardcore title ran its course. But I think it should be something that they bring back every once in a while. I think that gets good for wrestling like that. Every once in a while, the hardcore title comes back. But now with the PG era, of course, that's kind of screwed, right? My favorite storyline and feud. Gosh, I wasn't prepared for this one. I just printed these and did this video, by the way. I'm actually going to do a part 2. So enjoy part 1, and I will answer Billy Pizzone's next question on part 2.